a supplementary by the Honourable Barbara Edmonds, and then we're going to go to a primary by the Honourable, we'll go to your primary supplementary after that, Dr Woods. Barbara.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Minister, you claimed both in the media and today that you didn't campaign on making that abatement threshold change. Is that correct?
Well, in our initial tax policy, we did campaign on an abatement change. In our coalition agreements with New Zealand First and ACT, we agreed not to go ahead with it. And then the specific changes that we made were not changes that we had promised or promoted in the lead up to the budget.
So you are confirming today that the National Party policy of adjusting the abatement threshold for working poor family payments up to $50,000 from 1 April 2026 will no longer happen?
That's not a revelation. In the days and weeks following the election outcome, we were very
confirm
clear that
it's not
change would not be progressing, and that has been well traversed.
It's a broken promise.
We told you.
Coalition
We told you we're going to screw up your
Remember, we're aware
families.
that when the $88 billion worth of Greens debt wants to be added to your pile, and the $44 billion of extra tax
Okay.
wants to be added to your
Right,
pile, you'll be making
Greens
compromises too.
Order, thank you. We're going to go for a sup from the Honourable Dr
Who
Megan.
wants the green budget? I'll do it.
But at least we've got one.
Dr
Chloe.
Woods. Dr Woods.
Thank you, Minister. You've said that we may have to wait 4 years to find out if there is a single family in New Zealand that has received the $250 that was promised by the National Party and promised in last year's budget.
As I said, we've delivered on all of our promises in relation to the
Minister,
tax policy.
I'm asking you a straight question. It would be good if I could ask that question. What advice have you received, if any, around what the likely number of the people receiving the full $250?
As I say, it's very difficult for IRD to model that, and it is an important point that I'm making, so I'll make it again. The $250
Minister,
that we modelled was the
Chair.
potential
Mr. Chair.
outcome.
No.
Was based on us delivering the parameters of a tax policy, which we have delivered in full. We have kept our promise. It was based on us delivering a family boost policy, the eligibility thresholds and requirements of which we have kept in full. So I reject the conclusion of the member's question that any commitment has been broken. It has not been.
Minister,
And I'll tell you what.
Minister, the question simply is, what you're claiming that you've kept every promise. You cannot come up with a single family in New Zealand that has received the $250. I want to know what advice you have received to monitor how this is being rolled out until you can tell us that there is a single family in New Zealand that has received the $250. Isn't it time that you just admit you misled New Zealanders?
Well, I completely reject the characterisation of the member's question, and I would make 2 points. The first is the one that I already explained somewhat laboriously, which is that there is a difference between people's income as an individual taxpayer and therefore the effect tax relief has on them as an individual worker, and the supports that they're eligible for based on household income. Drawing those two things together has innate complexity in terms of the IRD's ability to give us detailed information about people's tax circumstances. For example, self-employed people often don't file their tax returns, and therefore we don't know their overall tax position for some period subsequent to the year in which the tax changes were introduced. The second point I'd make, Mr Chair, briefly is this. There are millions of New Zealand households who benefited from tax relief that this government delivered that the members opposite opposed. So every time they cry about how much tax relief people have received from our budgets, I cry wolf, because actually what they wanted was for those families to get zero in tax relief. That is the contrast between our two positions.
Any supplementaries, Dr Woods?
Yes, this is just up on that question. Will them, and I appreciate the Minister may not have it at her fingertips now, but I think it would be useful if the Minister could supply to the committee any advice that she has received around how many people are receiving the full $250 amount, because we would like to see if there is a single family in New Zealand that has received the full amount of $250.
As I've said to the member, I have received advice.
So will you supply that to the committee?
Just
No,
let the
if I
Minister
could finish my answer, that would be helpful. I have received advice on how many families we think have benefited from changes to tax brackets, which she opposed. I have received advice on how many families have received increases in tax credits, which she opposed. I have received advice on how many families have received family booster payments, which she opposed. But collectively, drawing those together is challenging for the IRD.
Okay, we're going to, thank you, Dr Woods. We're going to go to Todd Stevenson for a primary.
Thank you, Minister. I'm going to move on from the last election because
You'll just have to wait there, Todd.
Yeah, family boost. Okay. When was family boost announced? Like, when was it going to be kicked into action? 2024, was it?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the data now under the budget economic and fiscal update 2025. There doesn't appear to be any data on the books for last year. So yeah, they're correct. We don't know how much families actually received. It's not there. Where's the data gone? It's not there. We've got a projection for this year, which is 131 million, followed by next year, which is 171 million, but we don't have anything for last year. Well, we don't have the actual numbers for last year.
Well, actually, yeah, okay. If it's last year, got to remember, for the government, the new financial year starts and finishes on the 1st of July.
Oh, that is true, yes.
Yeah, so, yeah, there would be no data from last year because last financial year for the government finished July the 1st, or, June the 30th.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But still, there should be numbers on the books of how many families have received those payments so far.
Yeah, which would be for this year, yeah.
Yep, and for last year as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
We should-
we're still in this year's tax year.
Yeah, I mean that's true,
Yeah.
but we should have the number of families that received the family boost last year, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of how much was spent giving that out, we should have numbers of how many families claimed it.
Yeah, or how many so far, potentially.
Yeah.
Well, it depends how quickly they report those figures out. Yeah.
And if Labor is suggesting that we don't have that data, that's a problem.